Greetings and welcome to Flanagan's Ecologic. I am your host, Ted Flanagan, and today I'm joined by Henk van Alphen. He is the Chief Executive Officer and the Director of Wealth Materials Limited. He's based in Vancouver, British Columbia. Wealth Materials has mining interests in Chile, Canada, Mexico, Peru, perhaps other countries. We're going to focus on lithium in particular and eco-conscious extraction of lithium. Henk, welcome to the podcast. Very good to meet you.
Thank you very much for having me on the podcast. Hopefully it will be a pleasure.
Well, it's great. It's great to meet you. And I know you're in Vancouver right now. I think you've been there. I believe you've been there for over 40 years. Is that about right?
It shows my age. Yes, I've been here for more than 50 years. Actually.
More than 50 even.
Yeah, no,
but
which is actually, kind of really ridiculous in a sense that I came here for 6 months and I'm going back home to Holland every year, or returning to Holland, so nobody listens to me any longer about ever going back to Holland. After 50 years of announcing it, people are kind of sick and tired of me even mentioning it.
I've done a little digging on your career, and it sounds like after you were in the army in the Netherlands, you were a restless young man, and you decided to go west, I guess we would say in America. But you came to Canada, and it sounds like you were living way out in the sticks. Is that right?
Yeah, that's actually how I managed to end up in the mining industry, really, in a sense. So when I came, when I was in the army, I was drafted in the Dutch army. And then one night I was sitting on the edge of a forest thinking, and that's when I decided I should go to Canada and build myself a cabin in the wilderness and then experience, living in the wilderness, which is what I actually did when I came here. So I lived there I was living there. Luckily, I didn't go by myself. I had a girl with me, like the two of us lived there.
Yeah.
Which in retrospect was quite smart, because I think you could really go crazy if you live by yourself and we lived there for a whole year, without really seeing anybody, obviously. When we walked back, we flew in on a float plane. So that was easy to get in, and then it took us a week to walk out. So it was a week away from the nearest neighbor, who was actually a trapper who lived like a week away from us, and he lived a day away from civilization. So let's say, maybe he lived 6 days away, and it was another day. Let's just say it took us a week to walk back to civilization.
And you were hunting and fishing and just living off the land.
I built a cabin and hunted and fished to stay alive. So I took several books with me in order to, coming from Holland, obviously had no experience whatsoever.
That's great.
Like a stupid.
And I take it that woman is not the woman that you've spent your life with.
No. We had a pretty good time, and we're actually still friends. And because it is kind of like a life-changing experience, really, when you do something like that. So it's always like, I don't really talk about it. I talk about it a little bit on an interview like this, let's say, because it really shaped the future of my life, and what happened is, so when I came out of that, I went to university in Canada, and when I was a student, I immediately got hired by a mining company, because I was, of course, the ultimate bush rat. And mining companies happen to work in the wilderness, so that's how I actually managed to get into this industry. So
were you studying mining in college?
No, nothing. I studied mathematics, which in retrospect was probably not entirely really smart, because I have never seen a job opening for a mathematician in my entire life. So
other than teaching somewhere.
Yeah, well, exactly. Teaching other people to, in mathematics. So I never really actually ever used it, other than I can say, oh yeah, I was a mathematician, but yeah.
So you started working with mining companies, and like you said, they need people that can go off. Most of your work, it sounds like, was in South America. And you
no, it started in British Columbia for years and years. I was a contractor, let's say, a bush rat, really running around the bush, staking claims, doing geophysics, and then ultimately I got into the diamond drilling. And then in 1990, I started my first mining company, like a resource company, I started actually in Argentina, of all places. So,
and you were sort of agnostic as to what you were, when you went into mining, I was looking through your materials, silver, copper, gold, zinc, lithium. You've been through all sorts of different materials.
It doesn't really make any difference to me. I mean, in a sense, yeah. Like if you really are sensible about mining and wanting to make some money, which is kind of what I try to do always. It's like one of the negative side effects of hopefully working. Being sort of in the gold or copper space is probably the best place to be. But anyway, I have been in coal, iron ore, and lithium, obviously, in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
But a lot of it has been in South America. So, we have, companies here that are somebody knocking on the door. I don't know who that is. Sorry. I should have locked the door here.
That's okay.
Yeah. I hope I wasn't supposed to have a meeting with this gentleman. So anyway, I really, when I first started, when I first got involved in the industry was just as a student, and I had nothing more to do than, since I knew my way around the bush, having lived there. And it's amazing how much you actually learn, let's say, when you live one whole year, like every day. Yeah. It wasn't like I was a tourist. That's the only time in my entire life that I actually have to say that I was part of the wilderness, more, because most people like us were just tourists. Yeah.
Sure.
And that's kind of sort of shaped my ideas sort of about, how to deal with people, talk about the wilderness. And, I find very important to talk with the locals, because if you go to these places, people live that, let's say the indigenous people that live there. I mean, it's a connection that they have to the wilderness that we don't really have. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know that because I've actually had it myself for one, even though it was 1 year. You say, oh yeah, you were just a tourist for 1 year. And that's kind of true. But living there every day for 1 year by yourself, you become part of the environment.
Yeah.
And that's sort of kind of shaped me into thinking what I should do.
Well, it sounds like, so 1991, you founded something called Pacific Rim, I believe.
Yeah, that was my first mining company.
And your sort of your business model. I mean, I see that I think you acquired the rights at Taka Taka, Diablios,
yeah.
Aqua Riga. So that was your business model, was to acquire existing mines and then expand them, maybe?
Yeah, but Vancouver is, the center. It's kind of been a center for mining exploration for a long, long time, and that's kind of based on, in the olden days, let's say you have a prospector with a pickaxe and a donkey going off, finding, ending. Yeah. I just had the word in my mouth as to what you call it. You've kind of financed them to go out there in the wilderness. Grubstaking, it was called. And I think sort of from grubstaking, it grew into the Vancouver Stock Exchange, which was the local stock exchange that was really focused on financing people like me in order to go out there and find, commodities, deposits. So Vancouver actually has been a center for that for well over 100 years.
Yeah.
And that's sort of what I do. Yeah, like I've started companies that are listed on the Vancouver Stock Exchange doesn't exist anymore, but it's kind of the Toronto Stock Exchange venture listing is what it's called now. But that's how you do it. You raise money, and then you take that money, you go out there and you run around, and hopefully you find something. Most of these deals, to be frankly honest with you, Ted, they all fail. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's not that easy to actually come up with a mine in the end. Now, I've been kind of, let's just say, lucky, and I've had some successes in my life, but really, the failure rate is fairly high on this.
Sure. Now, but I understand the grubstaking. That's a good new word for me. Thank you for that. But when you started Pacific Rim, you weren't doing that. You were buying up existing mines or existing tracts of land that you thought had significant resources.
Yeah, I was kind of lucky in the sense that I went to Argentina. That was my first company, and I went to Argentina, and I wasn't really anybody in Argentina looking for. The mining industry in Argentina really didn't exist. Because Argentina is really an agricultural-based society, and mining, it's becoming bigger and bigger now. But in 1991, when I went there was really not much had happened. But you look for areas that obviously somebody actually had worked on.
Yeah,
you pick those. You can always create the whole thing from nothing. You go to areas where it's likely to be successful. Send a geologist out there. I have not been a geologist. I'm just the person that kind of sets up the company, does the deals, let's say, and then you hire a geologist. And the gentleman actually knocking on my window here was he's actually 80. I shouldn't mention his. I won't mention his name so you don't know, but he's 82 years old, and he still comes to talk to me about opportunities. So
no kidding. You're like the oilman. You're like the oilmen. You're all a bunch of rough and ready guys that go out there and find these resources. And like when you do that in a place like Argentina, even back then, was there I presume there was significant resistance to your digging up the land, right?
Not so much really, because remember that where you go for exploration is generally in the mountains. I mean, where you see exposed rocks, that's where you look. So you don't really fight with the agricultural industry. So Argentina that was never the problem in Argentina. Argentina was always a little bit, problematic for political reasons, let's say, than anything else. To do work there, but I love the place. I mean, I have to say I've had nothing but great times, and I don't know if you've ever been to Argentina.
I have. I was never mining there, Hank. Did what material were you?
The nice thing about being in the mining industry is that you go to places that nobody else goes to. Yeah. So you see countrysides that people just never get to. Yeah, as a tourist, you go to tourist sites, and for me, I try to avoid tourist destinations as much as I can. Let's say.
Yeah. Was language an issue for you?
The funny thing, this is a really embarrassing part of this interview now.
Gotcha.
Actually, it's really quite pathetic, really, in a sense. So I will throw it out there as to how pathetic it truly is. I've been going back and forth to South America for the last, since 1990. So what's that, 35 years? And I struggle with Spanish.
Yeah.
And it's really kind of pathetic, really, in a way. But I get along with everybody really well. Like I have a fairly outgoing personality, let's just say. So people kind of like me, and I do get a lot of deals by virtue that I'm actually like a nice guy. Like I hate to sit here promote myself on your podcast.
I can tell you're a nice guy, though.
But I do. People really want to do business with me, so I have a much bigger flow of opportunities than, let's just say, most people would. And certainly, like I went to Salta. What Salta is in the northwest of Argentina, and then I went there with somebody from Chile. Actually, we were going. I don't know what the reason was, to look at some lithium stuff. And we go to Salta, and then the guy says, I cannot believe it. Like, you don't speak Spanish, and everybody knows you, and you have nothing but a good time, and blah blah blah. He says, it's unbelievable. I said, well, anyway, that's how it was. So that's how I really, in a sense, created the opportunities in the companies that I've had. And I do look at a lot of stuff, and
But with Pacific Rim, then you acquired these.
I acquired several projects because there was really nobody operating in Argentina, so it was really fairly easy in order to pick up projects. I mean, I ran around, and I just stayed there for quite the first time I went, I was gone, and I said, oh yeah, I'll leave for like 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and then I never came home for 4 months. Or my wife was just furious. And then it's like because I was never really in that business, running a resource company. So I raised $60,000 from friends and family, let's say, and that's all I had. So I couldn't come home, without
empty-handed,
having something to show for. And really, when I came back the first time, I still didn't have anything to show for, and I spent 40 out of the 60,000 already. So I was really under the gun then I have to go back again. And then I went back, and then I managed to pick up my first project, which was the Diablillos project. Was actually the first one I picked up, which is still worked on today, and it's almost going to become a mine here in the next few years, let's say. So this shows you 35 years later, that project is not a mine yet.
That's what I was wondering. With your business, then you would acquire, and then you would develop, in some cases you would develop the mine and then sell that facility.
What you really want to do is you find the project, then you develop it up to a certain point, and then you sell it to a mining company, because exploration and mining aren't the same things. You could be a fantastic explorer and the worst miner in the world. So you really should, going from exploration into mining is like, that's a very dangerous, it happens all the time, but it could also, you're completely different, two different parts of the universe. Yeah. So what I would, for the best thing, of course, is you find a project and you develop it to a certain point and then sell it to a mining company. That's really what you want to do in life.
And is that, okay, so now I'm fast forwarding a little bit to 2005, when you founded Wealth Materials, that you're still in charge of. Same business model?
Yeah, so Wealth really, I think, was uranium in Argentina. That's how I started with, and then the uranium market crashed when I always say, when the Japanese started to surf, with kind of, I shouldn't try to be funny on that disaster situation,
I get it.
but you know what I mean. Yeah.
2011, the Fukushima got hit by a tidal wave, right?
It was basically the end of the uranium market for a long time. I mean, it's coming back again now, but so that was the end of Wealth. And then Wealth just sat around doing nothing. And then in 2015, I just sort of dusted it off and started looking for opportunities for Wealth. And then that's how I got involved in the lithium space in Chile.
Yeah. Well, let's talk lithium. Obviously, hugely important in the clean energy revolution that I'm involved with. Absolutely essential for batteries that are used obviously in stationary applications, as well as for electric vehicles and on our phones and our laptops. Are we still in a situation where the demand for lithium is far outstripping the supply?
I wish. Lithium has had a couple of runs so far. The last was several years ago. Let's say it went to almost lithium carbonate went to $80,000 a ton. It dropped all the way down to $8,000 a ton last year. It's coming back up again now. It's like around $12,000 a ton. So it's coming back up. Lithium should really sort of, in terms of supplying the market, it should run around $25,000 a ton. It was really below, recoverable prices, let's say, in the last few years. So it will come back. The reason why I actually went into the lithium, why I was so convinced on the battery situation for cars, because I used to go to China quite a bit.
Yeah.
And then I don't know, I don't know if you've been to China, but
I have, yeah.
Yeah. So you go there at the wrong day. I mean, you can't see, you stick your hand out and it disappears in the fog. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was pretty obvious to me that electric cars had to be the future, certainly. And you'll see, I mean, more 50% of the cars, or more than 50% of the cars sold in China are electric. In North America, we're sort of lagging behind quite a bit, but it was pretty obvious to me that something had to be done, because it was just pathetic, and China has really ran with it as well. So, and in the end, the battery technology is changing continuously, and batteries are getting better all the time. And this, the battery range is what people are always very nervous about. But, the new batteries coming on the market, there are solid state batteries, lithium solid state batteries, and you can go like 600-700 miles on a charge, and they charge fairly quickly. So they will be coming out in, let's say, next year. And that will be the new generation of batteries.
Yeah.
And then it's stupid not to have a battery, but not to have an electric car after that kind of comes around.
Absolutely. Henk, help me out with the extraction of lithium. I was doing a little bit of reading. Sounds like lithium comes from brines, from clay, from pegmatites. Are you primarily focused on the brine, the recovery from brines, and this word that I learned this morning, salar, is it?
Salar, yeah.
Salar?
Salar is really a lake that doesn't that the water flows in and evaporates. So they are really the place where you have them is Argentina, Bolivia, and Chile is really the center of these salars. So all the contaminants in the water stay there, and water evaporates. So like lithium is a contaminant, let's just say, so it just enriched over millions of years. You get these grades in the lithium space. So in Chile, where they have the current operation is, you pump the lithium brines out of the lake, and in evaporation ponds, then you evaporate the liquid off, and you're left with salts. Let's just say, mainly salts, potassium, that kind of stuff, and lithium. So most of these things are actually potassium producers, and then of course the price of lithium goes up, and now lithium is the main thing. But if you go in these dry environments, the governments are basically saying we don't want any more evaporation happening, because it's, you evaporate the liquid off these areas that are very dry. So what you now do is, this is the new technology which is being developed, and the salars in Argentina and in Chile will have what they call a direct lithium extraction process, whereby you pump the water through a filtration system. You take out whatever you want to take out, just focusing on lithium, obviously, and then you just pump the water back into the solar. So
this is exactly what I was curious about, because I read about solar evaporation, and I thought, that sounds like a pretty good thing. But these countries don't have much water. You don't want to evaporate all the water off. So this DLA, or direct lithium extraction, is the way to go. What about getting lithium out of clay and pegmatites? Is that not done, or is that more expensive to do?
Well, that's done. All the clays is pretty so far. It's very difficult technology. It's not that easy to do. So I haven't really ever looked at that, and I don't think, certainly the price of lithium today, I don't think will justify anything like a clay project whatsoever. But you can do is like a normal mining, like pegmatites. It's just a normal mining method. It's rock. You crush it. You know, somehow get the lithium out of the rock. I don't really know how to do it, but it is more expensive. So lithium brines really are sort of the best way to do it, and especially if you can sort of use this direct lithium extraction technology, which is really not all that different from clean water, let's say. At some point so that's really a technology that it's starting now. So there's the new operations in Argentina are using it, and any new operation in Chile will use it as well.
Gotcha. Now, what about, I read in some of your materials that you've taken an eco-conscious approach. And what does that mean? I want to talk about...
No, it doesn't mean anything, in a sense of meaning that we are doing the direct lithium approach.
Oh, okay.
But we don't evaporate. So that was always like, we will not go and evaporate water in dry areas. So that was right from the beginning. We said that. Another thing is that, when you talk about a salar, you really talk about a lake, even though you can't really use the water. It's not like you're going to be swimming there or whatever, but you do. So generally you have people living around, when you're, indigenous people live in those areas. So I always been very conscious of, having people be part of that whole process. So we formed a joint venture company, let's say, with the local indigenous people. So they're part of the process, and not like, okay, we're going to pay you when we make money, whatever. No, I wanted them to be our partners, and that's different than most companies really do. And I think for me that was always, and as I said, maybe that comes from having lived in the wilderness and a feeling that I know that, because they, as I said, they do connect a lot better to the environment than we do, because we're just a bunch of tourists. Yeah. So to me, that was always very important. So that's what I formed in Chile, that we have a joint venture, a partnership with the locals.
And I think I read in your materials that, that it takes longer to do that. It's not as profitable to do that, but it creates a more stable and ongoing operation in that location, right?
Yeah, in a sense, you want to, let's just face it, you want to avoid conflict. Yeah. Like you want to have, so that means right from the beginning, you need to create an environment that the locals say, okay, this is going the right direction, and that's how you move the project forward. If in the end, if there's something really negative with the project and it's, then you also like, okay, that's it. The project isn't going to go anywhere. Yeah. So, but I think it's very important, to me at least, to have the locals part of the process, and then they're obviously going to be benefiting financially from it as well. And this is, as much as the mining industry is always being pointed at this, oh yeah, you guys are all out there destroying the universe. The locals, I always tell people, Microsoft is not going to open an office in the wilderness of Chile or Argentina or whatever. Yeah, it's like, you need to use the resources that you have in order to improve your lifestyles. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's no way that Microsoft is suddenly going to open an office in the Andes. I mean, that's just not going to happen.
But clearly, you've taken a path of being a good corporate citizen, and you must have seen other mining companies that haven't. I mean, there are horror stories of mines that have polluted waterways and denuded landscapes. You have a sensitivity that is that unique in your industry, do you think?
No. The industry is completely changing. I mean, all the permitting processes that are in place are very strict. But in the past, I mean, there was really never. Remember, the wilderness was huge, and
That's right.
the mining industry was very small in a sense. Like so. There were no rules and regulations in the olden days, and then you could say, "Well, that's horrible that the mining industry behaved that way." But I'm pretty sure many other industries didn't do any better either. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Today, that cannot happen any longer. I mean, there's all kinds of rules and regulations that are in place. The only difference really for me is that I wanted to have the locals being part of the process.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
But you're going through very strict regulations.
Sure. Last question is sort of looking towards the future. We alluded to this earlier in the conversation that there's lots of focus on lithium and advancing the battery chemistries. And I've been reading about all sorts of alternatives to lithium, sodium batteries, iron air batteries, vanadium batteries, different materials. Do you see a day, and how do you pivot? How do you adjust if you do, where we aren't as dependent on lithium as we are right now in starting off this clean energy revolution? Do you see that coming down the pike where there will be a different set of materials that are needed for our batteries?
It's the price of batteries is always, it's a big part of an electric car. So people will always look for other materials that will be able to replace lithium, because lithium, even today is not entirely cheap. And when the demand goes up again, I mean, you're looking at $25,000 a ton versus other commodities that are much cheaper. The thing is, though, that, I'm old enough, let's say, that doesn't keep me awake at night. That by the time we will replace lithium batteries, I'm sure I'll be 6 feet below the surface, let's say. Yeah. So but that is it going to happen sometimes in the future? I would say yes.
Yeah.
But it's not. I know that I read about batteries all the time, but I don't see anything around the corner. And remember, lithium batteries, they haven't been around that long either. Like, I think they started in the 90s. So, but still, they've been around for 30 something years. So it's not like a new technology just shows up tomorrow and then, takes all the, changes the battery components that much. I don't think that's going to change anytime soon, really.
Good. And I said final question, but I'll ask you one more. What do you do for fun when you're not grub staking? You're not out there traveling the world for materials. What do you do to relax and to keep balance in your life? You seem like a well balanced and a happy, healthy man.
I'm completely unbalanced, actually. So.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Oh yeah, no. I really, honestly, mean, I'm in the office, like, or I travel for business. As I said, I really never go on holidays. But I do travel a lot, and I do meet a lot of people. Like, I've met some extremely interesting people in my whole life. And it's an exciting, industry, and like, it's really exciting to discover something. And I mean, it's almost like you have to be a gambler to be part of this as well. And it's really I travel more than I travel a lot. So luckily for me, I'm an easy traveler, meaning that I don't suffer from jet lag or any of this stuff.
Yeah.
So I can travel all the time. So I travel a lot. I meet lots and lots of people. It's a fairly fantastic life, really. So I play golf. I mean, I used to be a real outdoorsy kind of guy, obviously, from living in the wilderness, and then I did that for a long, long time. But now I go and play golf, and then that's pretty much the only.
And maybe I need to amend my question in the future, not asking about balance, but about how do you feel fulfilled? And like you said, traveling, meeting people, interesting life you've had. Hank, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I really appreciate it.
Okay, no, thank you very much for having me. I hope it was interesting enough.
Oh, I found it extremely interesting. It's been great. I appreciate it. Have a great day.
Okay, thank you very much.
That's it. Thanks for listening to Flanagan's Ecologic. We'll see you next time.